Inform us about the Roman palace, man.
Roman palace. Okay, so here we go. I mean, in the book, I talk about five essential self-care pillars for mental health: sleep, spirituality, nutrition.
Welcome to the Going North podcast, where you will be encouraged, informed, and empowered to embrace your dreams and advance in life through authorship. I'm your host, best-selling author, certified leadership trainer, and book enthusiast Dom Brightman. Be sure to check out the goods and services from every guest, as well as some of the books from yours truly, the host. Now let the fun begin. Today's review highlight comes from not BAMF. BAMF. I'm going to let y'all guess what that acronym stands for. Anyways, their review title is Positive and Empowering. Dom's show is powerfully inspiring. His guests bring their messages on how to improve your life or find the tools you need to achieve success. And Dom really lets his guests steer the show and stand out. He's a great interviewer who lets them be the star. Thanks a bunch for that 5-star review, and if you too want to have your review highlighted, go ahead and leave one on our website, goingnorthpodcast.com, and be able to look out for it to be read aloud before an episode drops, just like now. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, we got another super special, awesome human for you on the Going North podcast. That's right indeed, because one of the greatest computers on the planet is your brain, and we got an expert today, y'all. That's right, an expert today, because today's guest, baby, that's right, all the stars, 5 stars, baby, is a board-certified integrative psychiatrist as well as a mental health writer who has just joined the business of immortality with his brand new book, baby. That's right, indeed. His brand new book called The Self-Healing Mind. So let's give it up for the GSB, baby, the one and only Dr. Gregory Scott Brown. How you doing today, Dr. Greg?
GSV, I like that. Thank you, Don, for having me. Happy to be here.
Woohoo! Happy to have you here, my man. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Because, my goodness, in the days where everybody's talking about mindset, it's like, hey, we need something to add to the wonderful stuff that's out there. My man's been taking things from a different level, like next level, man.
Mm. That's right. That's right. I mean, the mind is a powerful tool, right? I mean, and I think too many of us are not paying enough attention to it. So I'm happy to be here to talk about the mind and mental health.
Amen to that, amen to that. Well, funny thing is, I hear that the mind wasn't your first study. I think it was music. And since it's your first time on the podcast, you should try to get a bit of the backstory from the guests so the folks listening at home around the world know where my man's coming from. So, my filling us in on any cavities on the backstory about Dr. Greg himself.
Well, let me tell you, I am based in Texas. Like you said, I'm an integrative psychiatrist, but I had kind of a winding road to medicine. I mean, I started off as a musician studying at the Juilliard School out of high school. I spent some time in New York before deciding to transition into medicine. And I'll tell you what really got me interested in writing this book is my own story. Even though I'm a psychiatrist, I'm someone who, when I was in my early 20s, like millions of other Americans and people around the world, I struggled with depression. At the time, I had a really difficult time connecting with a therapist, connecting with a psychiatrist, but I did learn a bit about self-care during that time. Again, I had no idea it was evidence-based. I wouldn't learn that until many years later. But some of the techniques that I learned then and some of the techniques that I began to study later, I mean, that's really what I share with readers in the book, and I hope people can take away from the book.
That's right, indeed. Good takeaways, indeed. That's right, indeed. So my goodness, it's like all that wonderful winding road and then getting all the wonderful training and equipment to make you self basically a certified warrior. Get that black belt swag Indeed. So my goodness, man, like with all of that, especially with self care being evidence based, like why do you think self care gets a bad rap
Yeah.
nowadays? Because it feels like it feels like it's almost become a buzzword, and sometimes when you hear self care, some folks are like, "Oh God, this
Yeah.
again."
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love that question. I'll tell you, I used to hate it. It used to annoy me, but I mean, I've gotten to the point now. I mean, so many people are asking me that question, and I think I get it, and I'll tell you why. I mean, I think when people hear self care, I think the first thing that comes to mind is expensive spa dates, right? We think about bubble baths. We think of self care almost as this elitist sport, this elitist activity, right? And basically, we think you have to have time and money for self care. And if you don't, it's something that's not available for us. And, I have colleagues who are actually, going on podcasts and writing books essentially attacking self-care, suggesting that, there's no place for self-care in medicine, right? But I mean, I would argue the opposite. I would suggest, and I would offer to listeners here that, self-care, evidence-based self-care are things that all of us have access to. And so we each take between 20 and 30,000 breaths every single day. And it's one of the most underutilized tools in medicine, learning how to manipulate the way we breathe in a way that can extend the fuse in those moments where we're inclined to overreact or maybe get in an argument with our partner, can help calm anxiety, can help get better sleep. And that's just one of many techniques. So it's really learning about how to use what we have at our disposal to really improve our life. That's what self-care is all about.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Probably one of the best definitions of it ever, too. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
using what you already have. like,
Right, right. But I'll tell you this too. I mean, I think a lot of folks will think, okay, well then, if that's what self-care is, then is this just common sense stuff? Are you just telling me to feel better, right? To breathe, to sleep? And I'll tell you, I mean, while some of the techniques that I talk about in the book may seem like common sense, I think learning how to use those techniques and manipulate those techniques, whether it's learning how to breathe in a way that can activate the parasympathetic nervous system, for example, exhaling for longer than we inhale, right? Or learning specific foods, Dom, that have been studied and have been shown to help reduce anxiety, like L-theanine, which is an amino acid found in green tea and black tea. I mean, those things, I mean, may seem like common sense, but they aren't necessarily intuitive. And that's one of the things that I hope people can take away from the book.
oh, yeah, man, you can say that again, too, because it's like, oh, yeah, I think, yeah, self care tea. Yeah, her tea's good. Yeah, it's
Right, right.
terrific. Yeah. But it's like, common sense says so common. It's like rare sense. It's kind of like you're in an RPG game trying to slay the dragon in the dungeon sometimes out here.
Yeah,
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And the beautiful thing about it is the fact that not only you have that wonderful definition of self care, you actually have five pillars, man. So my
right.
goodness, inform us about the Roman palace, man.
Roman Palace. Okay, so here we go. I mean, in the book, I talk about five essential self-care pillars for mental health: sleep, spirituality, nutrition, breath work, and movement. And some people ask me, okay, why didn't you include therapy in that list? And I want to just make sure that, I convey this to the listeners here. I totally support therapy. I totally support the role of medications. I'm a psychiatrist. I see patients. I recommend therapy and prescribe medication in my clinic every single week, right? But it's also important to help folks understand that there are techniques, these five self-care pillars that all of us have access to, focusing on specific ways to improve our sleep quality, tapping into our spiritual self. And by that, religion is just one of many manifestations of spirituality. You don't have to be religious in order to benefit from a spiritual practice, whether it's through meditation or selfless service, volunteering your time, connecting with something outside of yourself. Nutrition, there's an entire school of nutritional psychiatry that suggests that certain anti-inflammatory foods, if we spend more time trying to not necessarily revamp our diet, but incorporate anti-inflammatory foods, antidepressant foods onto our plate, we can actually improve our mood. And then moving our body. We already talked about breath work, but moving our body. There are specific chemicals, proteins. One is BDNF that is enhanced in the brain when we move our body, that kind of acts like fertilizer for the brain. It allows our brain cells to communicate with each other more efficiently so that we can reach optimal levels of chemicals like serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine that are important for keeping us happy and keeping us calm.
Oh, shoot, that's what I'm talking about. Keeping that brain fertilized, y'all. That's right. All that growing magic. That's right. Gotta get that movement in. And yeah, man, it actually is kind of interesting too. How it's like, hey, like the whole therapy thing isn't mentioned in the pillars, but it's like, hey,
Mhm.
like you're already a psychotherapist, like you're already doing it for your clients that come to you. So like, it makes sense that you wouldn't even mention it because it's like, let me give them the obvious. Like, nah, let me not give them the obvious, especially with
Well,
the. Oh, go ahead, my man.
well, no, I was just going to say the other thing is therapy. Therapy is expensive, right? And it's important to appreciate that not everyone has access to that. I mean, someone like me, I can only see so many patients in a day. But when you think about how many thousands of people a book can reach, and the fact that the techniques that are described in the book don't have to cost anything, they don't have to break the bank. I mean, I think it's a good place to start. You could use it alongside therapy if you're plugged in with a good therapist as well.
Amen to that, especially nowadays where they're trying to break the bank.
Right.
It's
Right.
trying to break your bank. It's like, hey, buddy, we know your wallet's a little anorexic, but we're trying to get a little skinnier, right? Like, wait, that's not how that's supposed to work.
Yeah.
So, man, Dr. Greg's looking out for you. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. And my goodness, and with the classic sleep example, like like just the fact that apparent, if I'm not mistaken, like depending on the supplements you take can actually affect emotion. So it's like you're tying emotional health with sleep. It's not just the classic, hey, get like 8 hours of sleep. It's like you actually go deep into that, man. So what led to that discovery, man?
Right. So I'll tell you, I mean, any person who's trained in mental health will learn to appreciate the importance of sleep because it's something that we observe with our patients every single day. We know that sleep and mental health have a bi-directional relationship. And really what that means is if we're not sleeping well, and by sleeping well, I don't necessarily mean getting 8 hours of sleep, getting 10 hours of sleep, but getting enough of what we call N3 deep, slow wave sleep. That's our restorative sleep, right? So it's sleep quality. Then that can have an impact on our mental health, right? And so it can cause us to feel more anxious, more depressed, more burned out. But at the same time, if we're feeling anxious and depressed and burned out, that can also have an impact on our sleep quality. So in the book, I discuss specific strategies for how to improve sleep quality. One of them is something I learned when doing some research for the book is that, it's better to actually sleep in a colder room than a warmer room. So about 65 degrees, which I'll tell you, my wife isn't really into that. She likes a warmer room, but hey, man, science is on my side. So we get to turn down the thermostat at night. The other thing is making sure we're limiting the amount of screen time we are engaged in. I know people are spending more times on their computers and smartphones and on Zoom, especially in a post-COVID world, but we know that green and blue wavelengths of light that are emitted from our devices can block the release or reduce the release of melatonin, which is important for helping us get quality of sleep. And then the other thing, the last thing that I'll just mention here, again, there's more in the book, but this is perhaps one of my favorites. The bedroom should be reserved for nothing other than sleep or sex. I mean, that is doctor's orders. So no eating in the bedroom. If you're having trouble getting restorative sleep, probably avoid watching TV in the bedroom. Just reserve it for those two things.
Yeah, that's right indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Get that sleep, get that sex, y'all. That's right indeed in the bedroom. That's freaking hilarious. Like, yeah, baby. Thermostat's high, 65 degrees, Arctic zone. Woohoo! Science.
Hmm.
Like Jesse off of Breaking Bad. That's right, folks. If you know Jess from Breaking Bad, you can go ahead and post a picture of that next to the thermostat at night. You know, that's right, 65 degrees. Let me stop. That's definitely good to know too, and it really adds another layer and another dimension to it because it's like it makes so much sense, especially
Right.
if some folks may get a little extra out if they sleep, and it's like, hey, prevent all the sweating. Some
Right.
folks
Right.
like to do the whole Molly popping before they sweat, so make sure it's nice and cool. Oh man. So my goodness, so we got some folks who aspire to one day write and publish books of their own, man. So what was it
Mhm.
like finally getting to publish your first ever book, man? What were some of the setbacks along the way that you actually had to flip and turn into wins so you could finally get to the immortality status of becoming a published writer?
Well, I tell you, that's a great question, and I think anyone who's interested in writing a book should definitely go for it. I mean, I've had so many friends and colleagues reach out to me and ask me this very same question and ask me what it was like, because it's something they've been dreaming about doing. And for me, I hope it's the first of many books to come. But I'll say that perhaps the biggest lesson for me is that I always imagined that writing a book would would be this thing that I took some time off from work, went out to the mountains or the woods, just wrote this book, all by myself. I had no idea that it would take an entire team of editors and agent, and publishers, um, and publicists, to put this together and send it out into the world, and I'm just saying I'm just so grateful for the team that I've been able to work with, my agent, Joy Tutela, David Black, Harper Wave, Karen Rinaldi, my publisher, and everyone else who has supported this book, everyone who's endorsed it, and particularly to my patients who have really inspired me and continue to inspire me every day, because without them, again, this work wouldn't be possible. So it's definitely something that takes a team, and I'm so grateful that I've been able to share this first book with the world.
Amen to that, man. Amen to that indeed. So do you think you might go off well, I don't want to call it the deep end of the game, but do you think you might go like way left field and go like a teen lit novel, might go something totally different, write a
You
whole
know,
fiction
you
novel?
know, I, you know, I'll never say never. I don't see that in the immediate future. I'll tell you that. And one of the reasons why is just mental health is so important. And I'll tell you, even in the time that I've been a psychiatrist, I've seen the mental health landscape change. I'd say mental health wasn't nearly as quote unquote cool back then as it is now. And I think, as we have more people coming out and sharing their stories and more people interested in mental health, I think there's an opportunity here to not only put books like the one that I've written, The Self-Healing Mind, out into the world, but to consider that in the United States, there are over 130 suicides every day on average, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so the more we can have conversations like the one you and I are having right now, the more books we can have written about mental health, the more we can talk about it, even though most of us are all thinking about it, I think the better off we'll all be.
Amen to that, man. Amen to that, because you're so right about that. And the whole suicide thing is definitely disheartening because it's like
Mhm.
144 a day. Like, my goodness,
Right.
especially with the pandemic on top of that we're still recovering from. And it's like, dude, like,
Yeah.
when does it freaking end, man? When does it freaking end? So, my goodness, so any encouragement for folks out there listening who may be having those bad suicidal thoughts?
Don't suffer in silence. I mean, I think that's the biggest mistake that people can make, is not opening up about what they're thinking, what they're feeling. But it's also important to realize that sometimes you'll open up and the conversation won't go the way that you expected it to go. You'll tell a friend, you'll tell a family member, and you'll leave that conversation sometimes feeling a sense of rejection or feel like you're being judged. And my best advice would be to talk to someone else, to keep talking. The very worst thing you can do is to suffer in silence.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Don't suffer in silence, y'all. That's right indeed. Don't suffer in silence. We call that sis. Let me stop. Don't do that. Bad timing indeed. Bad timing indeed. But hey, part of the host's job and duty. But hey, it's all part of the game. So my goodness, man, since you've been on the boatload of these wonderful interviews promoting the good word of hey, get your mind right, and hey, you got this new stuff you ain't never heard before, this wonderful mental health page tape instead of a mixtape. Like, is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often when you're on these podcasts?
I think that I've been asked quite a bit of questions, but I think the main thing that I wish more people would ask me is, I'm someone who's never struggled with depression. I've never really felt all that anxious. Is this book for me? Because I find that a lot of people, when I'm going around giving talks, will basically tell me, I've been anxious. I'm going to buy this book for myself, or I know someone in my family, my daughter or my husband who's struggled with depression. I think this would be a perfect book for him. This book is really for everyone because all of us have a brain, all of us have a mind. Mental health, is a driving force really that determines the way we live and work and interact with each other and love. So I would say if you're even slightly curious about mental health, even if you've never been diagnosed with anything, pick up the book, give it a read. Something in the book may resonate with you. And if you think of someone who may benefit from its pages as you're reading it, then, pass it along. But this is a book that I wrote for everyone.
Amen to that. Amen to that. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Wrote it for everyone indeed. That's right indeed. And the good news is, it is for everyone too, especially the men out there who may be going
Right.
through some stuff right now too, because I know
Right.
you've contributed some great work to the Men's Health magazine.
Right. I mean, and the thing about men is that when you think about suicide rates, I mean, men die by suicide 3 to 4 times as often as women do. Despite the fact that women tend to be diagnosed with depression, which is a primary risk factor for suicide, about twice as often as men are, right? And so, again, I mean, it's not just men that we're speaking to. We're speaking to men, women, young people, old people, people of all racial and ethnic backgrounds, nationalities. Mental health is important for everyone.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Important for everyone indeed. Well, here's a fun question for you. Not sure if you've gotten it yet. So, if your wonderful book, The Self Healing Mind, if it was a food, what would it be and why?
Ah, I'll tell you. I mean, I've never been asked that question, but it's an easy one to answer. It would probably be salmon, and I'll tell you why. Salmon is probably the most important brain food that we can eat. I mean, it's packed with omega-3 fatty acids, which, whether you're an integrative psychiatrist or not, I mean, we are in the scientific community are learning more about the fact that omega-3s can be great for helping to reduce anxiety, to help reduce depression risk, can help with mild forms of ADHD. So if you'd incorporate more oily fish like salmon into your diet, then you're actually making some strides to improve your mental health, just like you are if you pick up this book and give it a read.
That explains why I like salmon so much. Alrighty.
There you go.
That's right. It's good for your mind, y'all. Get that salmon. That's right. That's right
Right.
indeed. Treat yourself to a salmon dinner and buy the book. Have a candlelight dinner with the book in front of you.
Yep. There you go.
That's right indeed. If you have a significant other, take it on a candlelight dinner with you, your significant other, and the book in the middle. That's right indeed.
Hey, anything that'll get you to read the book. If that works for you, go for it. Go for it.
That's right, indeed. Just put a little Elvis wig on the top of the book and be like, and the book will be like, hey, you don't have to fight over me. Oh, thank you very much. I'm here to help all of you heal. That's right. Oh, man, oh, man. So, my goodness, man, coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but you're still in 2022, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. If I were 25 again in 2022, I think I would tell myself to not to be so afraid to fail. I would say that regardless of whether it's 2022 or 2010, right? I mean, I think that failure is one of the things that prevents, or the fear of failure is one of the things that prevents so many people from doing what they're meant to do in the world. And I'm grateful that I think that over the past, several years, that's something that I've learned to fear less, right? I get that failure it's a part of success, right? It's a part of making meaningful change in the world. And so, I'd say to my younger self, and I'd say to other people who are that age to go for it, to do what they feel that they're meant to be doing with this world.
Oh, that's right, dude. Do what you need to do, baby, in this world, dude. That's right. Do what you need to do. Do what you gotta do, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. And I know what folks definitely need to do is definitely pick up some magical copies of your wonderful book and share it with their friends and family. And the good news is, you read the book yourself, man. So that's what I'm talking about, indeed. So they get to take you on the go in more ways than one. And for folks need to do just that and keep up with your journey when you publish more super special, awesome books, what's the best way for folks to do so?
So anywhere where you buy books, so it's available online, GregoryScottBrown.com. There are links where you can, get the book there. I encourage everyone, if you can, to support your local independent bookstore. But anywhere books are sold, you can pick up a copy of the book. And, I just encourage you to get a copy for yourself, give it a read, and share it with someone you think may benefit from it.
Woohoo! Well, there you have it, folks. That's right indeed, especially with the holiday season coming up indeed. That's right indeed. Give it as a gift to somebody. All gift folks with a self-healing mind. Be like, man, my mind could heal itself. Yes,
Mhm.
indeed. But my mind don't need healing. Well, it could use 8-pack metaphorical abs. Here you go. It's got you covered.
Yeah.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So, my goodness, any parting words before we close up shop, Dr. Greg?
Well, I mean, I think that again, conversations like the one we're having today, I think are important. I think it's important for people to understand that, when most people think about mental health, obviously they're thinking of depression and anxiety and suicide, which are really important. They're heavy topics. We need to spend more time talking about them. But talking about mental health doesn't have to be a downer topic. I think we can have some fun with it because there's a lot of hope, I think, in any conversation about mental health. People get better, they improve their lives. And so if you're thinking about mental health, let's start talking about it more. And, I'm just so happy to be part of this conversation.
Thanks a bunch for gifting us with your time and your ears to this podcast. If you want to make yourself even more super special awesome, like, subscribe, and share this with somebody that you care about and spread the word so that way we can get this show out to as many people as possible and encourage them and inspire them to one day become published authors of their own and join the business of immortality. Advance others to advance yourself.